Good morning.
Meeting to order. Do we have anybody from the public with us today? I don't see anybody from the public. Well, does anybody have any comments for the meeting, for the minutes from last meeting? I had some comments, but I've already given those, so I motion to approve the minutes with my changes to update some of the facts and figures. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
All right. David, I guess you're our first presenter of the day. And Chuck's on there too.
I think Michael Barnes is sitting in for Chuck today.
Okay.
But Michael, do you want to start it off? Or making it either way?
Why don't you go first? On the last one.
What?
I've been on the road. Yeah, I know where.
Hold on, this is it, Michael.
I'll just, and.
Review of like projects and then just balance for each. Is what I put on that.
Yeah.
But you can just go through the transportation, update this. There for your reference.
Sure, sometimes it was 7 on the screen. Yeah.
It went straight to the. It was able to. Then for group.
The small scale stands like it is already. Oh, that was.
They say,
We can see it. It's gone now.
That was the wrong slide.
No.
We could see the wrong slide very well.
The evolution of all this scale.
Did you send me the slide?
I did it. It's just the one
Okay.
that I can resend there.
Oh, no, but it's in the packet.
It should be.
For these rounds.
I'm back.
Sorry, guys. Hold on, I'm gonna share it so that Zoom can see it too. There we go.
All right. So interestingly, Lucinda sent me over a packet that Culpeper had put together, kind of a summary of their transportation projects that their communications department put together, kind of showing their performance measures, the status of various projects throughout the districts. And we did not have anything quite as robust and extensive as that, but one takeaway I have is I think we're going to do that for this next fiscal year. We have a new communications person who's just started, so he hasn't really gotten into some of the weeds. I think that Culpeper has done. So basically, every district does it a little bit differently. Ours is a little bit more succinct. So this is just kind of an overall top level summary of our long-term performance, looking over the past couple of years and current year to date. So I can go ahead and share this with everybody. It may be a little hard to see up there, but currently, basically what it's tracking is our project development and a 6-year improvement plan, project development on goal and delivery. So you can kind of see we're in the green for just about everything except secondary pavement conditions. So we're a little bit below our goal for the state of secondary roads out there, but there's a nifty little map. You can actually look up on Virginia roads where you can actually look at all the secondaries and see what the pavement is on all of those. This just kind of summarizes the total mileage and what percent are in good, fair, or fair condition. Also looking at bridges as well. So otherwise, just basically the number of construction or the number of projects in the 6-year improvement plan, currently about 556 million. If you want to break down at the next meeting, I can provide a little bit more detail on some of these projects and what we're looking at this current 6-year improvement plan. But this is kind of an overall summary of all that information. Also, the people who work at the district office, I believe, is just beneath at the very bottom. So if you scroll down a little bit. This is just going to be who we are at VDOT Lynchburg District. So 10 counties, multiple 3 residencies. I can't tell you how the area headquarters, but many area headquarters. So 609 positions, 73% in the field, 27% are eligible to retire in 5 years. So we're definitely going to be looking to hire people. It's going to be a big issue moving forward. As you can see, 64% are Gen X or baby boomers. So a lot of people aging at VDOT, and that's going to be one of the big things going forward. So yeah, we had 6 preventable employee crashes in 21. It went up almost double to 11 in 22. So that's an issue as well. Like I said, it's just a very high level summary of a lot of this, but if you like, I can work with our communications person to get you something more detailed at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, listen, can you, unless somebody has questions to do.
That's the number.
At the top there.
Got it.
Yeah, that's it. So I assume that our localities get this report. Have you all seen this report that's coming from the district? Michael, I haven't seen this already yet. So, and of course, it's attached to the minutes or the pack this meeting. Something put out by our communications department tries to give a fairly high level overview of all projects that are going on within the community and by county. Most talk about projects that have been funded and are moving, some either through engineering or through construction. And also touching on some of the other, elements the VDOT is doing with maintenance and other aspects in our district. I don't have that much detail to provide you. Each for your locality, any project that is been funded, you can find more information about that in the document. I guess maybe not so much for some of you all, but certainly for the Charlottesville and Albemarle area, there's a listing of all the projects that are currently under construction, as well as a few that are VDOT managed.
Can we do it next slide? Oh, is
It's
this what you-
it is what I'm looking for, and I do apologize. I've been on the road. Got back from Colorado last night and driving. So I've been on the road for 4 or 5 days, and last I left, I thought that kind of there was discussion about this in the email chain. I didn't realize I was going to be the one providing you all the update. I have to tell you, it's a great document. I had to edit it. My last job was a local assistance position. It's really, if we had to edit it and make sure it's accurate. So I think it's really good information to read up. But more general things going on in the district as well as stuff. I'll leave it there. Yeah, any questions?
For those of you who haven't looked at it yet, there is a project update by locality, so you can look through it to look at what's happening, both, in your locality as well as other projects in the community and other localities.
I have a question. Does the document reference when VDOT local residencies come to the board to give them quarterly updates?
No, this is more of an annual review at a high level. It's not getting into a lot of the more detailed issues that your local resident engineer would be providing to you at the board. Those are much more on a monthly basis of what's actually going on in that individual project over the past month or two. It's a bit higher level than that.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, Chuck just texted me to tell me that 13 projects were funded in our district. So
Yeah.
it's smart scale. So
Yeah, I have it, so 12 in our district, including, recommended for funding under the draft scenario, so the final decision will be made in June. But around 6 and 151 is in the funding scenario. So,
I was curious about Michael, do you want to share this? To the full public?
Yeah.
interesting. So ones that will interest this crowd, the Avon Street multimodal project, which is the one southern one of the two, the one that was out south of the interstate. And also the Belvedere project with Albemarle was funded, as well as the improvements at Peter Jefferson Parkway, the Thomas Jefferson PDC had put in. The rest of them look like they're in Culpeper, Madison, Fauquier County, and Warrenton. So there we are.
And again, just to reiterate what David said, recommended for funding.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions about the Culpeper and Lynchburg transportation update?
I had a really quick question. Does transportation board know that Greene exists when it comes to smart scale? I think they might not just skip G's because we get passed over every year.
Got to wear a tie, Jen.
I didn't see any Louises in there either, Tom.
Yeah, there weren't any projects that were funded, it looks like in Fluvanna or Louisa or Greene.
Hey, I'll
So
make a
That might
comment.
cut off the press today. That's-
I'll make a comment. One of the things they did this round was change land use to spread it out amongst all the area types. And that allowed the town of Warrenton and the town of Culpeper to get make a lot of projects funded, which they hadn't been able to do in the past. So what they're basically going to be taking the projects from the MPO area.
Any further questions about the transportation update? All right, well, thanks Chuck and David. I guess we'll move on to John.
Thanks, Michael. It's on the first slide.
No, it's. So, like, am I doing something wrong? I don't know, I have no idea. What are you gonna check it out? Sorry. So they're seeing their slides.
Ted Reed, I'm CEO of JAUNT. I've been with JAUNT about 13 months. And though I can longer say anything new. Sorry to kind of remind me that I am. Anyway, I've been asked to give an update as to what's going on at JAUNT. And
Is it not advancing?
well, I did. Right now? Questions?
So it is. Yeah, try, it's the first slide, which.
Yeah, it's not advancing. On the screen, let's see if the screen.
How should I get it? Oh, it's not, it's. No.
You want to move on to the governance? Or do you need to?
No, I don't need, so I'll give the update on the governance study. Over here.
You want to do this?
It's the first battle for this study, but it's staff is one for you guys. I wasn't able to get it in the packet because I got it yesterday. And it's gonna be a draft into the final report, so we're not putting it out to the public, but it is, it'll be in the packet, so it's on the website. So the first memo for the governance study is going to look at existing conditions of transit and legislation, like kind of governing existing conditions. The second phase will be a review of transit governance structure. The third will be looking at potential revenue generation. And then the fourth will be to develop a governance scenario and funding allocations. And then the last one will be making recommendations. So this first tech memo provides an overview of the current transit operators in our region. PAC, JAUNT, UTS, and the RTAC, we use that as well. And it looked at the kind of an overview of the organization, the organizational structure, their governance structure, how they make decisions, and their funding source, which I found really interesting. And then the second part of the memo compares 4 examples of the governance structures in Virginia that support transit. So that's we have a current authority, it's just not funded. So we have the Charlottesville Albemarle Regional Transit Authority, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, and the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. They all have a governance structure and revenue to support transit. So they looked at those and made some comparisons between them all. And this will be kind of the basis of seeing if we need to, what we need to do in the legislative process and building a set of objectives for consideration. So that's the first memo. We're actually working on our second memo and right now, which is going to be a peer review. So we're going to look at other cities, like regions that are similar to our region, where the university and kind of the same population and land area. And once we get those peer regions, we're going to look at how they make transportation decisions and what types of systems they use to govern transit. And so that's going to be upcoming in a few weeks. And that's the governance study update. Any questions?
Not to be too picky, but that last page,
Yeah, it's
it
coming.
was 11/17, I got, yeah. Cool.
But it'll be, I'll email it to all of you so you can see the description. Oh,
Are you ready for me? Or
yes,
you
yeah,
small
I
time?
know. I'm ready.
Okay. Again, my name is Greene. I won't tell you the new joke. This is really well. First of all, about John, I think John's a pretty familiar organization, just to make sure we're all on the same page. John is actually what we call a public service corporation. We're kind of private, we're kind of public. We are owned by 5 governmental entities. Albemarle County, the city of Charlottesville, Louisa, Nelson, and Fluvanna. They comprise our stockholders, shareholders, and they have a voting membership on our board. We also serve Greene and Buckingham County. They're in an ex officio role, and maybe someday they'll be part of the corporation. That's yet to be determined. Just again, we provide public transportation services throughout our service area that you saw. We're trying to promote independent living, aging in place type issues. We think by getting people to medical appointments and other services, promote healthy outcomes for individuals. They can take John to get an appointment instead of deferring medical appointments, medical needs, which may become more costly and impactful later. We think we provide a good return on investment for most of our funding partners. Most of them, they put in $1 worth of local money and we give them $3 in service. Not everybody, but most of them. And then by providing access to jobs and other opportunities, we promote equity in the communities. Some things that we're working on, I'll hit over each of these areas in turn. A couple of years ago, we were involved in some controversy, which I'll refresh your memory on. We're also looking at alternative fuel vehicles. We want to get into something called micro transit. We've also embarked on a planning program called the Transit Development Plan, and then we're also trying to recover from the pandemic as well. The first thing is we were embroiled a couple of years ago in some controversy. Some of the issues involve staff members maybe not being as diligent with taxpayer money as probably should have been. Maybe some bad choices were made. But there was more to it than that. I'm not sure how much action was being public. But certain procedures within JAUNT created some issues about how we reported financial information, how we used our funding, and a few other issues as well. First of all, certain staff members basically, we think, kind of cooked the books when it came to our performance data. And we kind of inflated our operating statistics, which drove how much funding we got. That was all straightened down. We had to pay money back. Here forward, we're doing a better job in tying our data to actual operations. So if we tell you how far we've driven in a year, we can tie that back to a real bus driver schedules and things like that. Also, we undercharge our social service agencies. We provide services to like Job and Pace. We have not been charging them the correct rate. We are in the process of addressing that, trying to fine tune how that gets done and create more up-to-date operating agreements with them. Most likely it will involve a significant price increase, which means that part of our business might kind of go away. Hopefully we can mitigate that. And if I'm getting too in the weeds, let me know, or if I'm saying something that doesn't make any sense. Also, JAUNT is a deceptively complex operation. We operate in the rural and urban areas, and we receive in one way or another federal money operating both environments. You can't mix those environments. You can't use rural money in an urban service and vice versa. For decades, JAUNT did that. We used rural money in urbanized areas, which benefited the urbanized areas until they kind of caught up with those. To give you an example, on the left is a map showing in the blue the rural area, and the green is the urban area, which we call the ADA zone. We provide services within a certain radius of CAT bus routes, which are eligible for federal funding. The blue area has also been where we've used our rural money. The map on the right, though, shows a kind of a whitish area outside the green zone. Those are urbanized areas which are eligible for urban transit funding, which we get no urban money at all. Money we get for urban services strictly for the green zone. And the blue money, the blue area for rural money, can't be spent in the white area for many years. This has consequences. We get operating and capital money on the operating side, means we're providing services in an urbanized area in which we have no federal money, which means the local areas have to make a decision. Do we pay more local money or do we cut the service? And by this map, it kind of illustrates that our services kind of commingle all over the area. So it's going to be difficult to cut out one part without affecting the rest of it. And we're working on solutions to that problem right now. It mainly impacts Albemarle County, where we've been in discussions with them about how to address that. On the capital side, we get a separate pot of money for capital. Originally, the traditional method, we get 8% federal, 16% state, and 4% local to make 100% of our funding for capital. So annually, we do about $2.6 million in capital needs. That means the locals would pay about $104,000. That's spread among the 7 jurisdictions I mentioned. Because of this urban-rural thing, we have to alter the formula. The reason is because we may have a bus operating in the rural area, but come into town. So if we start in Louisa, take someone to UVA hospital for cancer treatment, we may turn that bus around, do a city of Charlottesville trip. And then that bus goes back out again to the rural areas. So it's very difficult for us to have a dedicated urban and a dedicated rural fleet. To be efficient, we need to mix and match those operations. Since we can't dedicate it in one way, we have to adjust our funding formula to reflect how much of the federal money can be used in our assets. So going from an 80% to about a 49% share means that the local share goes from 4% to almost 36%. That means for the same capital program, we're going from 100,000 to almost $1 million in local contributions. Have I lost everybody on that? Okay. Needless to say, people aren't happy with that change, and the people being the urbanized area. So not only are they getting kind of nailed on the urban operating side, they're also getting nailed on the capital side. And we spend probably more capital in the urban areas than we do anywhere else. So we have to figure that out. We have some solutions that we're working through. In fact, we may be overly conservative on how we count urban and rural services, and we're reviewing that with the RTAC as we speak. So that's a challenge that we have.
Out of curiosity, does the federal government recognize that? I mean, I saw a similar kind of thing when we were in Shenandoah Valley, this whole idea of urban and rural and the difficulty of managing that in an area that, you know, boundaries are fungible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of the federal regulations that we have this situation. I don't know why John was able to get away with this for so many years, but it did. So in some ways, the urban area has benefited from our mistake. But you can, by doing things like this, is what we do is we figure out if we're operating urban and rural, how much is urban and how much is rural, and you adjust the formula to reflect that operating environments. So we do about a 60-40 rural urban split. So we kind of split our funding up that way. State funding doesn't matter where you are. They don't make that distinction, but on operating and capital, they do. On the operating side, we only get able to use urban operating money through the city of Charlottesville. And they say you can only use it for ADA, paratransit, and no other urban service. That's an issue that needs to be worked out locally. Probably a good issue for RTP.
Is there like a specific definition that they use to define rural and urban? Is it like density?
It's density, also the census had a lot to do with it, as where they draw the lines and stuff like that.
Okay.
And depending on how we interpret the data, we might be able to decrease this penalty that we're looking at, but we need to work that out. Now this creates a challenge on the capital side. First of all, we have 108 vehicle revenue vehicle fleet. Revenue vehicles of us is actually used to pick up riders, as opposed to the non-revenue, which is more of a support vehicle. We discovered we have too many vehicles, first of all, so we need to reduce that by at least 20, maybe more. Our vehicles typically only last 5 years, or 150,000 miles, whichever comes first. And if you can imagine, we're running in rural areas, you can put a lot of miles on more quick. Another problem we're seeing is the price of vehicles have shot up dramatically because of the supply chain issues, and also the delivery time has also gone up as well. The chart I'm showing you The golden bars is our mile between breakdowns. You want those bars to be high, as you can see, they're going down. We're having more breakdowns as our vehicles get older. Our average fleet age is the blue line in the secondary axis. Our average age of our buses is 4.2 years. And of course, the average that we've been replacing is 5 years. So not only the bus is more expensive, they're taking longer to replace. So it's causing us to take some actions to extend the lives of our vehicles. So the challenge is to balance this out. And it's affecting a lot of our funding partners. It's not just the deserts issue that we're calling it, but that's where the urban federal funding is not available. But we've also had to increase our driver wages because of the driver shortage. Also, John probably took an informal approach to distributing costs and funding among our funding partners. And we're trying to be a more formal, professional way of going about it, more transparent than we have been in the past. And when you go to that particular way, it changes the dynamics by which people pay for transit, and it's not always good news. And then we also got a lot of COVID money in the last couple of years, which enabled us to decrease how much local money had been paid out. Now that money is gone, plus the fact that our costs are up and we're taking a more transparent approach to funding, it's causing some concern among our funding partners. Here's an example, Louisa. It's kind of hard to follow, but we're showing on the left the average. This shows the percentage of funding covering operating expenses for various geographies. So there's the JAUNT federal operating assistance on the far left. That's what the average community who are 7 jurisdictions receive. As you can see, it's probably below 40% of their costs was covered by federal operating. Louisa has been getting more than that in the average share, and that's typical in other communities too. The black line, 50%, typically you're only allowed to cover 50% of your costs with federal money. So while other communities have gotten below average, places like Louisa have gotten above average. And this has been a rude awakening for our funding partners. And we're trying to bring things back down to a more normal level. And it's causing a lot of conversations with our funding partners. And if you keep going down, in the case of Louisa, they have benefited from this informal cost distribution, funding distribution that we're trying to correct. Again, it's causing some issues with this. Moving on to more pleasanter discussions, we're looking ahead. Everyone's concerned about the environment. We're trying to become better stewards of the environment by looking at the possibility of going to alternatively fueled vehicles. Our goal, we just recently completed a study to give us some direction as to which way we ought to go. The direction appears to be battery electric buses. We want to reduce our greenhouse gases by 45% in the next 7 years, and net zero by 2050. I think this is in line with other goals, I think at least in the state. So we looked at CNG vehicles, hydrogen fuel cells, as well as battery electric vehicles. We're going with battery electric vehicles is the most feasible way to do it. The other 2 methods require a lot of infrastructure to be put in order to supply that. Plus, it's not sure if the supply side creates more issues than the actual emissions. And there's more to that if you want. One of the problems we have in the demand response area, especially in the rural areas, our vehicles travel distances that outlast the charging of the vehicle. So this chart, the vertical dashed lines is the ranges of the vehicles, and the horizontal is how far our vehicles tend to go. In many cases, they exceed the distance that, and you can go with battery electric technology. The solution may be is to create fast charging stations at key locations in the rural areas. So in the middle of the day, the bus would stop, maybe for lunch, recharge, and then continue on instead. But that requires an investment in infrastructure and other private partnerships that we want to explore, and we're going to look at that. We're asking for a grant from the RTAC for next year to study that implementation. On the fixed route side, we want to commuter bus services. Those fit within the range. So those may be really ones that we can look at to convert to battery electric. This is a map showing where we might be able to distribute these things. Another thing we're looking at is called microtransit. Another way of putting it is like Uber or Lyft for transit. Our typical client will call it, has to make a reservation to use our service. They call into a call center, and we book their trip based on a day and time that's convenient for them, and we have space available. If you're familiar with Uber and Lyft, you can do a more spontaneous trip. You can also book it on your cell phone. So what we want to be able to do is offer that as a service delivery mechanism. We are looking at various opportunities to do that. And we've also filed a grant to look at which market areas and rural areas are best suited for that technology. We are also currently talking to 3 microtransit companies to see if they would partner with us on various microtransit opportunities which are coming up this year and maybe in the future. As also mentioned, we're looking at doing a 10-year plan, which is wrapping up right now. And the plan is basically to look at all of our goals and objectives and what we need in order to meet the needs of transit, what that's going to cost us to do that. And the TDP provides a basis for us to take other actions like acquiring battery electric vehicles. There's a process involved. I won't go over this too far with you. We look at needs. The darker the colors, the more the need for transit populations. This is our 6th county plus Charlottesville area. You can see there are needs all over the area that we need. Older adults, same picture. And then this is an overall aggregation of various metrics to measure need. Again, needs appear to be all over the place, especially for rural areas. We also did a customer and stakeholder satisfaction survey. We generally scored well. And John has a very good community goodwill, which I'm proud of having inherited. And we need to maintain that. There are a number of recommendations, everything from creating an app-based booking system for our services. There's a Monticello microtransit opportunity that may be a couple of years off. And there are some other improvements such as in Nelson County, Buckingham, Louisa, and we also have some commuter bus options to fix as well. Also upcoming, we're also making a grant application to do a rural transit needs assessment. We want to take this data and quantify it. How much transit does Nelson County do? And where do we fall in that matrix? And how much funding will it take to bridge that gap? It's step one in making sure that communities have adequate transportation. Also, we need to do a technology roadmap. We need a better strategy about how do we use advanced technology at JAUNT. We've been an early adopter, but we've kind of lost our way a little bit, so we need to have a better roadmap. Can I play this?
Yes.
That's right.
Good work.
And also, we're trying to recover ridership, and we've been running some image building ads, and here's one right now.
Sure, you've seen us around, but have we been formally introduced? Since now.
You have this?
Are you together?
One have this, right?
I definitely agree.
Sorry about this, I came late, we didn't get a chance to practice. While they're figuring this out, any questions or comments?
I noticed when you're talking about the operating and capital funding, the word fair is
Right,
you're still running fair free,
yes, we are.
and through the TDP, you're continuing to run fair free for the foreseeable future.
Yes, I mean, TDP really didn't have any recommendation on it. There was a study done before I got here. That said it costs more money to collect fares than we actually got in fares. Because we're very labor intensive on the fare collection side. And so it's expensive. I have not examined the study to determine if that's true or if there are other ways. In locations where we're seeing an increase in pricing to our clients, our funding partners, you know, they bring up the idea of can we charge fares? Like Buckingham, for example, their rates are going way up, and they raised that issue as well. So we may have to revisit that conversation. What we haven't seen though is usually when you have free service, demand goes through the roof. But we haven't seen that as much in both areas. These commercials are playing on local stations, I think through the spring. So you might see one.
Sure, you've seen us around, but have we been formally introduced?
It's a really great promotion. Maybe it's just slowly on there.
Since 19...
I could probably share this presentation on the website.
I'm gonna put it in the packet, which would be on the soon, and I'm gonna email this to everybody.
Maybe they can play it.
75.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll leave it there for you to do. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure, you've seen us
Well,
around.
I can never figure out, so you think after 2 years of doing this, I'm experts at it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or not?
Ted, one quick question. The question came up from my Fluvanna cohort, but when you calculate the urban areas, Lake Monticello, Ruckersville, does that help? And have you actually been able to go through the census blocks to determine which areas that we all consider rural, but yet meet the criteria for urban?
We have to go by the census definition. The census draws the line. And under federal regulations for our funding, that's the determining factor. So, you know, looking at pockets like Ruckersville would not make, you know, unless it's already part of the UCA, would not be, you know, we can't, we don't determine this ourselves. Certainly, if everybody did their own determination, that might skew the results. So they have us rely on the census. And the census should be coming out with the new UCA line here pretty soon.
Yeah, I was gonna add that it should be by the end of the month. We won't have the updated lines, but I know there was a change in definition.
Yes.
So basically, smaller areas, I think 2,500 or less, dropped off urban areas. So there was like 800 plus areas that actually like are no longer considered urban and became rural. As a result of that, the overall urbanized population of the US dropped from 80.7 to 80% over the past 10 years. Just with that change in definition, because so many small towns under 2,500 dropped off. And also like the definition, I think, for the level of household density also went up. So a lot of like urbanized areas either shrank or split apart. And I know like Greenville, South Carolina, they lost population because Walden became its own urbanized area with this last update. So it'll be interesting to see what the new lines look like, and that'll be at the end of the month.
I was gonna know. It may not help us with this grant cycle, we estimate our grants February 1st, but we have other ways to kind of move the line. I think the way we count our rural service was a bit too conservative, so we're trying to revisit that. But hopefully what you're saying helps out as well. Don't worry, Jim, Greene is definitely rural.
Does anybody have any other questions? Well, thank you, sir, for your presentation. I appreciate your time today. Lucinda, would you like to walk us through the governance study update?
Yeah, so I did that while we were trying to get. So I think we're at the roundtable discussion and future topics. So you guys just want to go around the room and give updates?
No major updates. We're still progressing on the Route 151 study. So by the next meeting, we should have a little bit more for you guys, just with updates on that. But basically looking at the safety analysis of the corridor, we went out, did a field visit, got some photos. Some people came out and talked with us about the corridor. So definitely a passionate group of people, I think, live up there. So I suspect for the public meetings, we'll have quite a few people. So this is an update to the study we did 10 years ago. And that study, we had well over 100 people at the public meeting. And it's grown based on people stopping and pulling over, asking questions about what we're doing out there. I think it's, well, we're already seeing that. But yeah, we should have a meeting here soon, probably before the next TTC meeting. We'll have a stakeholder meeting with updates.
And they're sharing their thoughts about the roundabout.
So yeah, I mean, that's in the drafts. Oh, you mean the roundabout going up in 250?
The new one, yeah.
Yeah, the new one. Yeah, we had somebody come out and surprisingly, he said, we need bike lanes on this whole corridor, but we don't need that roundabout up there. It's like I lived on this corridor my whole life. Like, well, you might be getting another one. It's like 106.
Well, that was originally.
I've been 215, that'll be your area. That's
No, look, I'm thinking of this.
oh, it's not.
Yeah.
For the county, we are doing our secondary sector plan updates. We're going to the board in March and also May, the public presentation. Working on priorities, there's been projects, so that's going to go to the board in May as well. And then Jessica's taken point on Freebridge Lane, and we're working to convert that to either a full pedestrian promenade. The Freebridge Lane's between 250 and Beartown Park and up, so convert that to either a pedestrian promenade or a one-way. Which direction we're not too sure yet. We have a public meeting with the Antioch CAC next Monday. I think that was last time. Same like this one. 2 hours ago. Well, that's going on in the county.
Fluvanna's a whole lot new going on. We're still working on the comp plan, and it's got a bunch of solar projects in the queue. Did start talking with Richland a little bit. There's a proposed project, sharing borders. And they also have their solar ordinance, public meeting in February, so this month, that got switched over, so. Comp plan and solar for us for the most part.
Not a whole lot in Nelson. David said, Route 151 corridor study still going on. I think we have acres. Still working on the comp plan. We have our second work session tomorrow evening. So they'll be going over community facilities and infrastructure, natural and cultural resources. I heard one of our projects got recommended for Smart Scale.
They got their, how many rounds? 3 rounds? Yeah.
We'll
It's good to see that.
Thank you, David.
I'm with the city and Ben Chambers and the transportation planning manager. Not a lot with rural transportation going on in the city. I can share that we have some updates at this week. We'll be putting out our RFP for a transit strategic plan, which is similar to the effort that Ted had been undergoing with the transit development plan. We're also working on the micro transit project with John. And the thing that I was mentioning about Pat, probably just the two.
So we're in the Culver District Police working on a project selection process. Many of you all have worked with us on Smart Scale. You know, we've worked a lot on trying to create a concept plan and estimate for localities in that sort of compressed time frame, about 3 to 4 months before the actual applications are due. We're previous round of revenue sharing and TAP, which is on the odd years. Last round, we started trying to do that a little bit for some of the localities we work with, those revenue sharing and TAP applications. One thing we found is that, you know, in that compressed time frame, it's important to try and really have a good concept when we get into the process. And so we're going to try to reach out over a series of meetings next week on Wednesday at 1 o'clock for those counties that are in the Charlottesville residency, and then on Thursday at 1 o'clock for those folks who are in the Louisa residency. These meetings will be at the residency to talk about this process that we're starting out. Hopefully, all of you will got invitations to that week before last. Essentially, what we're trying to do is a series of longer range goals and short term objectives. The longer range goal is, you know, each of our communities, whether it's the planning district or their own planning efforts, create numerous projects. And the idea is to try and like sort of prioritize which ones you will hope to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, so that we have sort of a stable of projects that we can draw projects from, or depending on which cycle we're in, whether we're in the Smart Scale cycle or we're sharing TAP cycle, and start working on those things months before the actual pre-apps open up, so that we can go out and do a site visit. We can bring out not only folks, myself, Chuck and I, in the planning section, but still the folks in our location and design section, as well as if it's like a bridge or something, big folks. What other sections might be important? We'll talk with the locality about the project that they're considering. Sort of start vetting some of the issues that might be with it, maybe suggest potentially alternative alignments, but sort of settle in on a sketch plan, really high level sketch plan that is, for what the proposal is, and a little bit more detailed project narrative that will explain not only what the scope of the project is and intent within the project area, but also maybe make sure that we're looking a little bit outside the project area to give a little bit of context. That's to serve 2 purposes. One is to sort of make sure that the planners who are in that locality could understand some of the engineering challenges they might be facing with the project, so try and shape it. We can, there's certainly obvious issues that we might have to overcome with the project, and determine whether or not we should continue to change the plan, try and overcome those objectives, or if they are, you know, something we need to deal with in the project itself. But also to transfer to the folks who would be in the engineering side of the thing, what really is the intent of the project? what is the planning goals and the context, even the land use around it, or maybe if it's a phase project like a bike trail, what the future phases of the project are trying to achieve. So that when they're entering into the design portion of it, they have that context. And then eventually we'll go into the pre-app applications we've done previously. So you all work with this on. This is not a mandatory process. Localities will be able to do their own, development of pre-application. But with all of these applications, one of the major problems I think we're all experiencing is projects that are underfunded because they weren't well conceptualized, but the estimates going into the funding round were maybe a bit too low. So all projects will need to be signed off by our district development engineer, Mike Jacobs. That's part of the application process for these things. So even if you are a locality who goes to hire a consultant to do a plan, and come up with your own estimate, we'll be vetting that and sort of having either working with that particular estimate or having one parallel to try and get us to that point of the application. But I think hopefully the benefit of this thing is that localities, we can bridge that divide that sometimes happens between engineers and planners, where the planners have good ideas, but don't always have the sort of the technical understanding or the technical better understanding of the sort of technical or engineering or practical aspects that make it not as good of an idea or maybe some tweak. And then on the engineering side, where they're basically focusing on their standards and sometimes a little bit more narrow or without understanding for the planning context that happens. So I'm very excited about this. Again, off meetings are next week, and if you have any questions, be happy to field those either now or outside this meeting or next week's meeting.
This come out of, I guess, VDOT, or I guess localities on the seams way, I can see prices in other projects and VDOT things, and then we have to have better coordination so that there's, I guess, less price spikes on all projects.
Well, sort of another, in recognition that sometimes these projects have not been well estimated, VDOT came out with the cost information office past 2 years ago, it's really been in effect around smart scale. And the contingencies that come out of that are guided in part by the unknown. So we can, if there are opportunities to know more about a project, maybe if it's something like a large structure we're trying to put in, and maybe it makes sense to do a little bit of geotech work before. I don't know who pays for that, maybe the locality does, but try and bring some of those contingencies down. Yes, that is not to that we're looking at this.
Okay. Since this is kind of gonna be, I mean, I guess we kind of always like TRC things, like not application specific, but like a pre-app kind of overview, like you said, to kind of iron out some things. Or is this gonna be kind of integrated into the VDOT portal in a way, like we can park some conceptual plans, but not really say this is smart scale, this is app, and then that way you all can look and share.
Yes.
An email chain. Okay, that.
Yeah, we have a pre-application module in my portal that hopefully start to be used more intensively. I think that this being a new endeavor, we're going to have, it's going to take us a cycle or two to work through, and there'll be lessons learned that we'll get from localities, and also we'll start ourselves to try to improve this. But yeah, definitely to try and put a lot of information into that pre-app portal. Certainly, I think we all recognize, go back 3, 4, 5 years ago, applications that were going through the process that were, some I can think of where they printed out something off their GIS and made some numbers and notations on it, and that became, for a bike path that costing, $6-8 million. So this is trying to get a little bit improve that process, so we get better applications. Hopefully get better projects in the future.
We're taking more time.
TJPDC's perspective. I think we already had the smart scale announcement, so those are recommended scenarios. As David said, these will be vetted and reviewed by the CTV, and these will become official when the Commonwealth Transportation Board adopts the 6-year improvement program in June. And sometimes there are adjustments or additions that are made to their recommended list before then. And then also keep in mind that these are typically programs for several years out, so none of these are going to start, within the next year. They'll start, 4, 5, 6 years out, probably. The only other thing that I'll mention is that we have a new transportation planner that is starting next week, so we're excited about that. There will obviously be a little bit of a learning period to get them on board, but they will probably be plugged into this. So you'll get to meet them the next time we meet. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that we should be hearing about the Safe Streets for All grant award. Whether or not our application was awarded in the next month or two, hopefully, fingers crossed by the end of this month, but we'll see. Regardless, we should be working with VDOT to start collecting some crash safety data, starting within the next month or two anyway. So that will probably be what this group starts putting a lot of its focus and attention on over the next few months. Do you have anything else on that? So, yeah. We're done with the in-room updates. If those of you online want to share anything.
I'll go. I'll leave the chairman for last. Just wanted to reach out and say thank you to the Culpeper engineering staff. We do have a safety concern intersection. It's a northern intersection on Route 29 in Greene County. Has terrible line of sight distance because it's right at the top of a hill. And they did determine that we could implement an R-cut intersection, which seems new and innovative in our area, but there's 10 plus years of data on how much safety improvements come out of these. So we're working with the local board to take advantage of the hard work and generosity that that the staff there in the Culpeper Engineering Department has created for us, coming up with a solution. So I just wanted to give a heads up and say thank you for that. And then the quick question came up, another question for Ted. You have the final report that you submitted with our package. Is that something that we can share with our boards, or maybe you have already done that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I put the link to your website that has the transit development plan and the fuel study report on it. And Jim would like to know if you can share that publicly with this board.
Sure. I mean, the TDP on the website is public. So you can, but if you could wait a week or two, we'll have a better document. Unless you're bored. I know you're bored. You're very demanding. But you're welcome to. It's public information. It's out there for that purpose. But I will warn you, it's not going to.
Thank you. That's all we have. And Greene, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. For Louisa County, we have Lake Anna Resort Plan Unit Development. After several deferrals, will be going before the Board of Supervisors tonight. Be a long night. That's all I have. I don't think we have anybody from the public with us, do we?
No, we do not have members.
Town of
Well,
Scottsdale.
The town of Scottsdale.
Good afternoon, Matt Lawless, Town Administrator. Appreciated learning everything here. Nothing urgent to share on updates.
Thank you. Is there any other last minute business before we adjourn?
Oh, so topics for the next meeting. Does anybody have any suggestions? I was wondering about Michael's project selection process and if that would be a good presentation, like to talk about what happened at the meetings and. if you have any more things on it.
Sure, we happy to do that.
That sounds good to the committee. Anything else?
Probably a little one, but like the changes in the urbanized boundaries and taking a look at how that impacted this area. Yeah. The, or CVTDC as well.
We like to give you opportunities to get as much mileage out of your
So I guess we can make a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn, so moved. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next quarter.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry.